we are mildly interesting guys, and we talk about some stuff. So welcome to the podcast, we call it Joel the Podcast. It's Alex and it's Alex, here for Joel the Podcast. Hello everybody, I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex.
And I forgot to do the bzz, but this is our podcast, Joel. Sorry if that threw off your timing, but I forgot to do the bzz.
Well, with the magic of editing, the timing will be flawless as always, but
by the way,
I'm going to have no idea where to start your clip. I
was listening to an episode earlier. I think I picked it out as a highlight. Maybe not, but there was something where you said, like, you were saying something as a transition. You were like, speaking of whatever, I honestly don't remember what it was at this point, and I was like, I was just about to say that, and you said, let's say it together, and then we, like, train wreck tried to say it together because, you know, we have a delay, so it's, like, nearly impossible, and then we were like, this is impossible, let's just say it and then move on, and then we perfectly said it in sync, and made a joke about how you would sync up the audio from that instead of the Joel, but you didn't, and it was still perfectly in sync, so I don't know. That was probably not necessary to say, but good job, patting myself on the back. Welcome to episode 70, 75? 76? 76 of Joel the Podcast. I wanted to start off by letting everyone know that Nathan did not owe me $1, or does not owe me $1.
Still can't remember if you paid me $1 last week. I remember we determined last week that you did still owe me the $1.
Yes, and I don't believe I paid you, so...
All right. Well, Alex still owes me $1.
Yeah, so I do. And next week... Not next week. 2 weeks, we'll have the resolution of the other bet.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we're really getting into January here. How about that?
Right, so, sports. There's a bit of sports to talk about. Number one is, it was announced literally like a few hours ago that the Eagles are fired their coach.
Yep, I saw that as well.
Their unsuccessful season, which, honestly, I have mixed feelings about it. I definitely don't think that, you know, everything was all his fault, but I definitely think he had his issues, and it may help just to have a new coach get in there, so
yeah,
we'll see how that turns out. The 76ers lost their second game of the season last week, and it was the second night of a back-to-back, like, double. They played 2 nights in a row, so...
Same team?
They lost to the Nets, which is not the team they lost to, the first team they lost to. If that's what you're asking.
I was asking
they weren't playing the same team 2 nights in a row. No.
Yes.
They were not.
Okay.
But
that's baseball, right? Where they do that. That's not really a basketball.
Yes, and
thing.
they actually do occasionally in basketball. They'll occasionally play the same team 2 games in a row, but it's usually not the same, like, one night after the other.
That makes sense.
Anyway, during that game, one of the Sixers players found out that he had tested positive for COVID. So
while he was playing?
Well, so he was actually sitting out the game due to an injury, but he was on the bench. So once he found out, he left and quarantined, but as a result of contact tracing, the Sixers were only able to field 7 players for their next game, including only a single starter.
Yeah.
They put in a strong showing, but they obviously lost that game. And then they're playing tonight with 9 players, but they did get 2 of their starters back, or 1 starter and 1 bench player back, so that should be a help.
It's interesting. I feel like there's just not that many people on a basketball team to where any one of them having COVID would really just contact trace everybody. But
right.
I guess they probably plan with the assumption that maybe a couple of players will get it and have like separate groups, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. So,
Huh.
I'm not sure how exactly they did it because Joel Embiid was one of the players that was cleared and allowed to play. And, like, you could see earlier in the game him, like, talking with Seth Curry, who was the player who tested positive. And, like,
Oof.
Oh, there you are. I don't know exactly what their determination was, but he is playing tonight, so hopefully he doesn't have coronavirus.
Starting to sound a little suspicious, but
I mean, the thing is, all the other Sixers tested negative, so
sure,
it's not like they don't know if they don't think they have it, but it's in case it's still like in a stage where it wouldn't test positive, but it can still transmit. So anyway, the actual interesting news about the Sixers, aside from that I wanted to say was, I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast or even to you at all, but the Sixers have Dakota Mathias on their roster.
No, I didn't know that.
Okay, so they have Dakota Mathias on their roster this year, former Purdue player.
Nice.
And he in the first loss, the second loss rather, the one where they didn't have all their players missing. Mm-hmm. He actually played, non-trivial, like non-garbage time minutes, which was surprising to me. And then, of course, in these two games where they are short players, he's playing quite a bit. So
right.
It's exciting that to see a Purdue alumnus on the Sixers for me.
Yeah, good for them. Speaking of Purdue,
they won a road game against a ranked team finally, beating Michigan State on the road.
Yep.
Also, I don't think we mentioned since the last time, but they got their one home game that they had in the middle of a bunch of road games against Nebraska postponed because Nebraska's players had COVID.
If you remember, I said if we lost to Nebraska at home, I would quit the podcast.
Now that you mentioned that, I do remember that. So
it's maybe for the best.
Right.
And we'll never know the outcome of that game unless they reschedule it.
It will be rescheduled. Actually, the Big Ten made sure to include time to reschedule postponed games at the end of the season. So
okay.
I think it will probably be rescheduled. So
may
hold on to your podcast quitting boots just yet.
All right. Well,
but it was exciting to see them get a win, and I didn't check the rankings today. I don't think they're ranked still, but hopefully they probably got some votes.
No, I would be surprised if they were ranked, but I'm sure they did get some votes.
Right, and honestly, the way they've played against like teams that are in like the teens and the top 10, and then how they've played against teams in like the 20s since they beat Ohio State, who was in the 20s, I feel like they're like around in the 20s as far as what their skill level actually is.
Yeah, they definitely have the potential to be ranked. It's just a matter of, I think, honestly, it's going to be a matter of they'll be ranked if they manage to get a few wins in a row.
Right.
But if they, keep alternating win, loss, loss, like that, they'll never quite break through.
Right. The problem is the Big Ten is so tough, so
yeah,
they may not have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, it'll be definitely really difficult to get consecutive wins. Why am I struggling so hard to find out what the rankings are?
Okay, they're not ranked. Let's see if they got any votes.
Michigan State got votes, so Purdue certainly should.
But Ohio State is up to Ohio State is up to 21.
Okay. Minnesota at 10-4 is ranked number 23. But I don't see Purdue getting votes unless I'm just totally missing it.
No, I don't think they did get votes, and what's even more concerning is that Indiana got 2 votes.
That was probably a mistake.
So we'll have to beat them in our next game coming up on Thursday here, and so we can get rid of that.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be another road win, and
yep.
Obviously IU sucks. So
obviously. By the way, Rutgers dropped out of the rankings. They were 15 in the last ranking, so that's kind of crazy.
15 to unranked. Did they lose multiple games in a row or something?
I can't imagine any other reason why they would drop out. So.
Yeah, that's fair. So, all right. That's a whole lot of basketball.
Yeah, so
what else we got?
Did we get any emails this week?
I don't remember getting any emails this week. Let me check, but I suspect we didn't because I ended up posting 2 episodes on like Saturday or something. So, if somebody managed to email us between then and now, I would be impressed. But they didn't. The only email that's interesting that we've gotten since the uploading of our episodes is YouTube letting us know that our most recent video has been copyright claimed,
obviously,
for featuring music in it, because that's illegal, and
yep,
we're probably gonna get killed. What are we doing this week?
I don't know about that. What? Did you say something like, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I said, what are we doing this week? I was transitioning. Very smoothly.
Well, real quick, before we transition, I wanted to comment that episode... yeah, good try. Episode... Here, I'll give you the cue when to do it again.
Okay.
Episode 62 has 19 views, which was, I believe, the first... the first episode where we did answered advice from, real listeners. So...
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I'm honestly
As opposed
not sure.
to, I mean, that's especially striking, I think, because episode 61 has 4 views, episode 63 has 5 views.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild that that's the case, but
out of nowhere.
So hopefully our listeners liked that, and send us an email about that if you listen to it. Our email can be found on our website, alexandalex@joelthepodcast.github.io/alexandalex@joelthepodcast.website, and let us know what you think or thought about it.
Yeah.
All right, so now here's your cue.
Speaking of whatever we were talking about earlier.
Speaking of transitions.
Wait. I remember what it was, though.
Okay, well, here's the cue. Go.
Go?
Go.
So what are we talking about this week?
So this week, before we get to that, actually, I think I would like to talk about Joel the Game, because I guess maybe this counts as something we're talking about this week, but it's not like the main thing. But so I listened today to the episode where we made up Joel the Game.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, I think it might be good to make some modifications, because we don't ever get out of the first, 10 rounds. We don't get out of 20 points, right? And then we just end up having to inject points so that the game can actually move forward. So I would say that we should look at the modifiers mainly, and we should also look at the starting point total, to see if we can, make the game a little bit different. So,
and
first
you
of
also
all,
mentioned like a points giving.
Yeah, I want to discuss it at least, because initially our idea wasn't to bet points. Our idea was to assign a certain number of points to each game. And then whoever won would just get the points. Actually, we should probably discuss this first because it would affect the later decisions.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So,
right.
Currently, what the rules of the game currently are: we start with 10 points each.
Right.
And we can bet, kind of Jeopardy style, so that if you win the points, and if you lose the points.
Yes.
Now, that's all well and good in Jeopardy, because for the most part in Jeopardy, when you lose points, it's a punishment for trying to answer and getting it wrong, versus the other person getting it right.
Right.
So, I think our rules are a bit harsh, because there's definitely going to be a loser every time.
Yeah, the main problem is somebody's going to go down every time.
Right. It's really hard to build up any momentum in our scoring.
Right. Which is not ideal. So so the issue we were talking about back then was, how can we assign points to the game in an interesting way that's not just like a random number generator. And obviously we came up with the betting back then, but I'm wondering if we could think of anything now, or even decide that maybe a random number generator might be better.
I don't know, like, a random number generator might be better in terms of, like, gameplay ability, but I still don't think that's very interesting.
Right.
So maybe, I mean, honestly, okay, so let's be clear. The rest of the game is very good. So It's not necessarily a requirement that this piece of it has to be all that interesting.
Right.
And in fact, I would argue that the betting, at least the way we present it, isn't all that interesting because we're just, saying it at the end and there's not a whole lot of drama and build up around it necessarily.
Right.
So kind of from a baseline of random number generator, which I think is uninteresting but well balanced, where the winner gets the points. In which case, let's say you just roll a dice at the beginning, we both start at 0, and we're trying to reach, I don't know,
100.
50 or 100 or something. Like the average roll is going to be like a 3 or a 4, right?
Right. Well, yeah. So I would assume that we would adjust that number to be so that we would get to 100 in a reasonable number of games.
Okay. So we'll just scale it appropriately. That's totally fine. In that case, so having said all that, can we come up with something that is better?
Okay, so here's at least a more interesting way.
Yeah.
We each draw a card. Honestly, we could have one person draw a card, and that would be the point value, the value of the card.
Yeah.
Or we could both draw a card and have the higher of the two be the value, or we could each draw a card and add the two together, something, along those lines.
With the ultimate the end game of that is there's still some randomness, but there is one number that we are both playing for, one number that we each can win out of it.
Right.
Versus, so moving away from, and I think this is true of the random number generator too, but moving away from the fact that we're each betting an individual value.
Right. And honestly, the individual values aren't bad necessarily. It's, again, the going down. Well, the individual values aren't great either because, that results in, like, if you have more points, you can bet more points and win faster, and it kind of makes the game less balanced.
Right.
So
I think the last game we played, was that last week? No. Yes?
We played the game last week, but I think okay, say what you're gonna say.
I was gonna, like, the very end of the game, right? I had 30 points and you had more than 30 points, so I bet 30 points to catch up.
Right.
And you won.
Right.
So I just lost all of my points and then was betting 10 because that's what I had to do. You were at like 60 or 70 or something and could bet literally whatever you wanted. It didn't matter.
Right.
And
so, right, because I'm pretty sure every single game we play ends up in 100-0 being the final score.
Right.
Which is not desirable.
Right. That's really...
Okay, so I think we've firmly outlined the problem. So, what are your thoughts on the card thing that I mentioned?
I think the card thing is pretty reasonable. Here's just a couple of thoughts that I have no matter what the method we end up deciding is.
Uh-huh.
I think we should be scaling so that there's like a minimum of, let's say, 5 points for winning and a maximum of like 20-ish.
Right. I would say that it should be actually a smaller range. Well, like, not much smaller, honestly, 5 to 15. And then there's modifiers that can make you gain more points than that, or possibly lose points, but, you know, there would be things that would change that range, but that would be the base range, I would say, like 5 to 15.
Okay. Well, so maybe we're coming at this all wrong then. Maybe we take the ideas of having a point value that you decide and having a modifier to modify that point value and just mush them into you draw a card and that's the point value.
Right. The problem is I think the modifiers are good because they add a certain element of entertainment, like, you know, we finish the game, we know what the points are, but then there's still one more thing you have to do before you can actually be sure, or, you know, I think the modifiers are
everything right, but
I think the modifiers are a good game element. So
okay.
I don't know if I would be wanting to get rid of them quite that easily.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I was thinking kind of like from a practical standpoint, it sounds like we were going to be drawing a card to decide a number, and then who knows if that number is actually correct, but
right. So
there is some
we could
suspense to that.
We could roll a d20.
Yeah.
That's one option. That's different from cards. That's about the right range. Also not that interesting. I wonder if there's some way we could have a selection, like whoever's turn it is selects how many points it's going to be within a certain range. But they can't just... But it's not just like you just pick a number in the range. It's more like, you know, you have 10 choices, and every time you use one of them, you can't use that choice again.
Huh.
So, like, I have 3 5s and 4 10s and 2 15s, and so once I make one of the games 15, I only have one more game that I can make be worth 15, or something like that.
Okay. That's a really good idea. And you can make it so that, you know, like whatever choices we have, there's going to be, it's like way more points than you need, right? But like based on how close your opponent is, maybe you don't want to pick the bigger values so that...
Right. And then we'll have a couple that are like, we'll have like one point and then like one like 20 point, so
yeah,
for exciting
kind of like
rounds.
your last chance, last ditch effort. Just you got to get the points, so you got to go big.
Right. And then I think, okay, so do you think that's a good method, that we should do that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything I would change about that, and honestly, I think that's pretty good.
Okay.
We would just need to kind of do some thinking about the distribution we should have.
I think we should do that off air. I don't think it'll be that interesting to listen to that. But what
Fair
we should
enough.
decide is, should we have the point value be chosen before or after the game is selected? Like right now, you know, you bet before you even know what the game is.
Right.
But if by adding this, we're introducing an element of strategy, and so do we want to make it even more strategic by knowing the game so you know like how good you are at it, or do you want to keep it where you don't know the game so it's a little bit more random?
Yeah. That's a really good question, because as a player of the game, I think I would want to know the game before I made the points choice. But I'm wondering if that's any better or worse as a listener to the game.
Right.
I mean, I kind of feel like it doesn't make a big difference to a listener. Maybe I'm wrong. So if I'm wrong, then the listeners should correct me. But
I'm inclined to not change it, so we would keep it where you choose before the game is selected, and the reason is because I honestly don't really have a good reason why I think that, honestly. Maybe we should just, if you prefer that, maybe we should just do it after the game and see how it goes.
Well,
All right.
we could always try both ways, but
Right.
in a weird way, your vagueness has kind of talked me down from having a very strong preference.
That is very weird.
So I mean, you were saying words without a whole lot of meaning, and I was just sitting here thinking like, huh, maybe we should just leave it alone.
All I've got to do is disagree with you. All right. All right. Why don't we say for now we'll choose the points after the game is selected, and we'll see how that goes.
We'll experiment with the strategy.
Okay. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the modifiers.
Right. So, keeping in mind that these are no longer bets, right? We're going to have to rethink what even the modifiers should be.
Well, let's take a look at the modifiers we currently have. So, double your bet, I think it's reasonable to change that to double your point gain. Do you think that's too good?
Double the points? I feel like that could go either way, right? So like you're strategically, at this point we're saying you're strategically picking a bet based on the game. And it could be you bet big because you know the game is good, or you bet big because you're down a lot of points and you've got to catch up, or maybe you bet small because you're down a lot of points. I don't really know the best way to play the game.
We'll find out.
But I feel like once we have, I mean, and maybe this is intended behavior, but once we have a strategy to the picking of the points, that modifier is just going to, like, wreck that strategy, basically.
Right.
Or has the potential to.
So, that may be the intent though. But if
maybe every modifier should just intentionally make things worse.
Well, no. But I think it's good to have a very chaotic mod. Well, okay, so let's get rid of double your bet and let's change it to, since most, if not all, of the points in this are going to be positive, I think we can just say plus 10 to winner here. This is a significant bump to the winner, but it's not as good as just doubling their entire gain. Do you see what I'm saying?
I think that depends on what our points distribution is, right? Like, if it's mostly fives, I think these things are roughly equivalent. But if it's mostly like, I guess so. What I'm saying is this is potentially even better than doubling the bet.
Right. Well, the thing is, doubling your bet isn't really game breaking if the bet was 5 points. So I'm trying to mitigate situations where, like, the bet was 20 points and now you are 40 points ahead of your opponent just from a single game. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. And I mean, this is also a 3 out of 52 chance of happening, so we probably don't have to argue about it too much. Honestly.
Right. Okay.
So
winners and
plus
losers
10
swap.
Seems fair.
Winners and losers swap. What do you think about keeping this?
I think that's kind of funny. So like you just give the points to the loser sometimes.
Yep. I think that's fine.
I'm fine with that. Swap bets. Obviously, this is just meaningless. So
it is nothing now. So we need to change it. Okay. I mean, my first thought was swap point totals. That's probably too game breaking, honestly.
That's completely busted.
So,
however, it is very funny, so maybe it should happen like 1 out of 52
1 out
chance.
of 52. Yeah, the king of
spades. Or maybe
is...
2, just so that you can hope if it happens to you that it happens again.
Right. Okay, well, so for this one, if we're not making it that, let's make it, what if it's, instead of the winner, I don't know how interesting this actually is, instead of the winner gaining the points, the loser loses the points? That just prolongs the game. That's probably not necessary.
Yeah, I don't like that so much. I'm wondering if this, instead of swapping bets, because the effect of swap bets was essentially I don't know, just to create chaos. What if, or to remove the strategy rather. So what if this is like a change what the bet was?
Yeah, what if in whatever the bet was, it's randomly changed to one of the person's other available selections.
Ooh, yeah, that's even better. So I was thinking that like the opponent would pick a different thing that they wanted, but this one I think is more interesting because obviously if the opponent won, they would just pick the highest value. If the opponent lost, they would pick the lowest value.
Right.
So
this way they don't have a choice. Good. Plus, it's going to eliminate one that they might have wanted to use later.
Yes, I like that.
All right. So these +5 points to winner, +4 points to loser, -10 points to everyone. +5 points to winner and +5 points to loser. What do you think about those?
They're okay. So first of all, I think +5 points to loser is pretty good.
I agree.
I think that's fair. +5 points to winner is maybe kind of boring.
Right.
Because the winner is already getting points. And I mean, this was true in our other games. I always felt like it was fun. It was nice to get more points when you won.
Uh-huh.
But we're talking about nearly a 25% chance of that happening now.
What if this was... Okay, that's probably too many... What if one of the modifiers... There's probably too many of these in this category to do it to this, but was take another turn. Because in this game, it's clearly actually advantageous to take another turn.
Oh, so you get to pick bets.
Yeah, when it's your turn.
What if you pick from your opponent's bet pool as well, just to keep the numbers even?
Right. So you pick. Okay. So you pick your opponent's next. You pick the bet on your opponent's next turn
from their available choices.
So this is a little bit different from going again, because if you go again, you pick, and then your opponent picks. Whereas in this scenario, you pick for your opponent, and then you pick again on your next turn. So you're really picking 3 times in a row. I don't know if that's something we want to enable.
That's a little bit broken. What the problem I was trying to solve was just kind of offsetting the fact that one person would at the end of the game just have fewer choices than the other. But
I mean,
that's a penalty you pay.
I don't think
for
it's a real. It's not a real detriment because you used the choices. It's not like you lost the choices, to, they just got eliminated. You did use them, so.
Huh. Maybe it's a. I mean, I think based on what you said, you're right. It's not a very big deal, so we could totally go for that. Maybe it's a, free pass to bet whatever you want.
You don't have to use up one of your things. You could just pick any number within a certain range.
Yeah, any of the choices you have available to you, you just don't eliminate that value.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
So
you don't pick whatever number you want.
Or let's say I bet 10 points or something, and then I lost and you got 10 points, and I was like, oh no, and then we drew that card. I would get my 10 points option back.
Right.
Is how that would work.
Yeah, that's fine. It just doesn't seem that interesting to me, honestly.
Yeah. It's also kind of different from what we started out with, which was taking multiple turns in a row, because you're not really... I mean, we could just add in that you're getting another turn at that point.
I honestly feel like maybe none of those are great, because the point of the modifier is to affect the outcome of the game, right? Or the points that are being awarded. So
right.
All the things we talk about just affect something else. So what else can we think about that affects the outcome?
What can we do about the outcome, about who gets points and how many points they get? That's what the modifiers should aim to do.
Right.
So we already add points to the winner, rarely, which I think is good. We add points to the loser somewhat, relatively more frequently. which I think is good. Random point selection rarely just sounds funny to me. Winners and losers swap just sounds funny to me.
So, just as we'll come back later. Once we decide the actual bet numbers and their distribution, we may want to change these amounts, but we will come back to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what if one of these, probably less frequent than 10 different cards, but what if one of these was no points are awarded? Like, I know we're trying to get away from prolonging the game, but I do think if we, limit it, it can be somewhat interesting as a modifier.
I'm trying to think of like end game scenarios where something could happen to make the end of the game really exciting. And like if you go over but then pull this card,
right, that's exciting.
That's pretty exciting. However, in the rest of the game, if you pull this card, you're like, well, crap. That just kind of sucks.
It's just kind of lame. Yeah, so what... Yeah, it's not great. What else?
What else can you... I mean, honestly, though, what else can you do besides giving somebody points because they won, giving somebody points because they lost, totally randomizing the points?
We can
switching
do...
who gets the points.
We can do +5 points to random player.
Okay, that's kind of fun. Then you just flip a coin or something?
Yeah, something like that.
I feel like we're gonna need a whole, like, system to keep track of what's going on. You've got your set of cards for picking games. You've got your second set of cards for awarding points. You've got your series of various coins and dice to modify the modifiers.
It's actually kind of funny because one of the things we talked about when we were making up this game was we were like, we want to have a lot of game pieces, like physical things that are a part of the game to be involved.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, maybe we're not dreaming big enough. Maybe we just split the deck of cards into a couple of different modifiers and then start modifying the modifiers.
I don't think...
So, like, plus points to winner, and then have a whole separate thing to pick how many points.
That's way too convoluted.
Maybe we play another mini game to decide that.
We play the entirety of Joel the Game again to see who gets the modifier or whatever.
It's like the game where, like, each move of Monopoly, you have to play a game of Risk to determine something or another, and then each move in Risk, you have to play a game of chess to decide that. It's just all nested.
Yeah. Honestly, I think one of our mini games should be Joel the Game.
We're gonna end up with like an 8-hour podcast one of these times because we had to play Joel the Game to determine how to play Joel the Game to determine how to play Joel the Game.
Right. Okay. You know what? Here's what this is. This is gonna be a rounding one. Round points gained to nearest 10? 5? Let's say 10. That'll make it more interesting.
Yeah, let's say 10. So are you talking about, like, you add the points and then you round your total to the nearest?
No, round points gained. So if you would gain 9 points, you now gain 10 points. Or if you would gain 14 points, you now gain 10 points. Or if you would gain 1 point, you now gain 0 points.
Okay. I think we may need to... I like the idea of rounding. That's kind of interesting. I think we may need to change the spirit of the rounding based on how we determine the point choices to be. But we can come back to that.
Yeah, we can come back to that once we do that. Okay. Minus 10 points to everyone is a total buzzkill.
Yeah, that's a real bummer. I think there's some value in plus points to a random person. I know we mentioned that and then didn't actually go for it.
Okay.
I think there's some merit there.
Let's make it less. Let's make it like +3 points to random. And then I know we mentioned something else when we were looking at this for our modifier that we said we just wanted to do for like 2 different cards.
To completely switch points totals.
Right. Do we want to actually put that in there?
I'm leaning towards yes, just to increase the chaos.
Uh-huh.
But also, it's like 100% broken.
Well, the thing is, it's probably not as broken as you would think, because since we're roughly even in terms of winning these games, it's not going to be, like, we're not going to be that far apart, probably, in terms of the number of points we actually have at any given time.
Probably. Okay. All right. That's fair.
Okay, so do you want to make this 2 cards? This is now the Ace and King of Spades. Is swap point totals. And is this before or after the winner gains their points?
This should probably be point gain.
Yeah, because you don't want to win and then your point total is swapped and you actually lose.
You win, you get the points to... Yeah, no. But it makes sense because the modifier happens before you add your points at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
That's not... I mean, okay. Honestly, that seems pretty good.
Yep. And then so this would make 2 through Queen of Spades to be nothing.
Nothing. I think having nothing is still a fair modifier.
Yes.
Let's see. How do I feel about this? Let's look back. Plus 10 points to winner, plus 5 points to loser. Those, I think, are fair and reasonable. Plus 3 points to random. I mean, it's not game-changing, but it's kind of nice when it happens, you know? That's fine. Swap point totals. Totally shakes it up, but probably will rarely happen.
Yes.
2 through Queen is nothing. That's obviously, we want that. Random point selection. I feel like that's pretty good, right? Like, just...
I think that's a great modifier, honestly.
Yeah. It's just anything that it could be, it just gets switched to that instead.
Right.
And winners and losers swap. Obviously, that's great. That's very funny. Round points gained to nearest 10 is probably my least favorite one there, but it's still, not...
It's decent.
Not bad. Yeah. So, off-air, we're going to talk about...
The distribution.
We're going to talk about the distribution of point choices that it could be. Are those all the changes we want to make? Is that all we talked about?
So there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, which was some of these games.
Okay.
So I think Wikipedia Hunt is great. I think 10 questions is pretty good. Who is the highest card? If we had other ideas, we should definitely replace that. Concentration is good. Price is Right is great.
Yes.
Guess choice is rock, paper, scissors if we don't have a guest. We didn't draw this game at all last time we played.
No, we didn't. We didn't draw several of these, I think.
Hangman is tough, honestly. Like, for the person who's making it up, I think this is tough for the person who's guessing.
So it's too weighted toward
whoever's turn it's not.
Whoever's turn. So should we do you like playing Hangman in general? Should we just add some more wrong guesses?
Yeah, I think that would be fine. I think like making it 8 or something wrong guesses would just be better.
I was thinking 8 as well, so let's just try 8. I feel like there's been at least a couple of times, right, where you had some letters on the board and then you had some ideas but then just ran out of guesses.
Right.
Before you could get anywhere.
Yep.
Tongue twisters.
I think that's
is all
good.
right. It's pretty fun.
This is the one I want to talk about the most.
You don't want to find an item anymore?
I personally never have fun doing it, even if I win. And I haven't listened to any episodes where we played the game yet, so I don't know how interesting it is to listen to, but I doubt it's that interesting to listen to. Also.
And I will say it also, if we didn't have to each go off and run and narrate, there would be less editing to do in the episodes because split up. It's definitely, I have listened back, obviously, since I have to do that editing, and it's very chaotic.
Right.
And you don't really get a sense of what's going on. And I don't think that's, like, bad, per se, but, like, it's probably not necessary.
Right. So the reason we added this game is because when we were making up the game, you said, I want to have some kind of physical competition.
Right.
And we came up with this, which was probably decent as far as physical competitions go, because most physical competitions are just going to result in the same person winning each time, which we don't want.
Right.
So I'm wondering if we can think of any other more interesting physical competitions. Okay. No, that would not be good. Okay, let me just say it, and maybe it'll jog your ideas.
Sure.
My first thought was who can hold their breath longer. But number one, it would be entirely silent for the entire game. And number two, you probably have the same person win. You can solve number one by, instead of having the breath, you can say, like, who can, like, say the most words without running out of breath.
Who can say our website URL over and over the most times. Right.
But I don't know. I think we may run into the same person winning every time.
Yeah, I think that's the real problem. And I kind of had the same sort of thoughts, like who can... It's kind of just a simple thing you could do on your own. Who can hold your breath the longest? Who can... I don't know. I really didn't have all that many ideas. The only things I was coming up with were... I know we got rid of this game as soon as we possibly could, but roll a dice until you get a 4 was the sort of thing I was trying to emulate without just being that again.
Right. So
it has the same sort of hectic energy and like kind of meaninglessness to it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not interesting to listen to. It's kind of fun to do. But if we could come up with a simple... Actually, okay, so maybe I should just ditch that line of thinking and instead ask, is there another simple kind of wordplay game that you know of that we just haven't, done at all that we could start to include? Or some sort of like other short mini game along the lines of like, maybe tic-tac-toe, but obviously not tic-tac-toe because...
Right. So, we've played this before, the two of us, I don't know if you remember, but there's a game called Ghost, where one person says a letter, then the next person says a letter, and you try to keep going without making a word. You don't want to be the one who says a letter that makes a word.
Yes.
The problem is, so that's a decent option. So there's a couple problems. Number one is there's a lot of sitting there and thinking.
Yeah.
And you can't really talk about what you're thinking about without giving your opponent information that you don't want to give them.
Right.
Which is not great for the podcast. But we could make it just like a quick, like you have to say a letter within like 30 seconds or something. And the other problem is whoever goes first will probably either have an advantage or a disadvantage. I honestly don't even know which yet.
Right.
But that might be okay. So do you want to use that, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I like that idea as a game. Like, I like the idea of playing it.
Uh-huh.
And I think if it kind of sucks to listen to, then our listeners really should have sent us more suggestions.
I really don't think it can be worse than some of the other ones we have here. Okay, and then I think quick memorize is good. Guess the song. I think it may be worth doing something with this. Not necessarily opposed to guess the song, but I think more often than not, you pick a song that I just am not that familiar with.
Yeah.
And I tend to err on the side of making sure for sure that you know the song. So what we should do is we should put more restrictions on this so it's more evenly, it's even, like, and we don't run into those kinds of issues.
I would propose... So, okay, here's the problem that I have with Guess the Song. Is... I think it's similar to what you just described in that, you know, we're trying to pick ones that we feel like the other person knows.
But we don't really know what the other person knows.
But we don't really know.
Yeah.
And also, the longer we play the game, the harder and harder it gets to come up with
song.
Picking new songs, and it's not that interesting to like sit and wait for somebody to pick a song. Like that's not something that you can just come up with off the top of your head.
So let me ask you this.
I would kind of be in favor of just changing this game as well.
So here's something similar. Let me know what you think of. What do you think about something similar but with movies? Okay, so we wouldn't play the movie. What we would do is we would open up like the Wikipedia summary of the movie and just start reading it and see how long it took before the person figured out what movie it is. 'Cause I feel like we would both have a better idea of what movies the other person had seen, and there are more options. What do you think about that?
I think there's a lot of promise to that game, so I kind of want to try it right now, just to, because there's one thing that I'm worried about, which is that the Wikipedia language is not going to be like vague enough to keep it interesting for very long.
Yes, so
like if you pull up a Wikipedia page for a movie,
I got one right now.
All right.
So I think one of the keys is you have to not use actual character names. So if you
you just kind of like scan along the article and kind of paraphrase what you're reading.
Well, I was going to read the actual thing, but just anytime it had a character name, I would just say main character, main character's girlfriend, main character's friend, sidekick,
I
villain.
mean, yeah, sure. Let's try that.
So I'll try. Here we go. On April 14th, 1865, 5 days after the end of the American Civil War, John Wilkes Booth and Michael O'Loughlin enter a tavern in Washington, D.C. and approach...
this is National Treasure, isn't it?
It's not National Treasure.
Is it National Treasure 2?
It's National Treasure 2. That was fast.
I could like picture the scene going on in my mind too. I kind of liked that.
I'm not sure. All right, pick one out and read one to me.
All right, let me come up with a movie real quick. So many things named. Alright, I feel like this is going to be fairly easy, but let's see. Oh yeah, this is going to be stupidly easy. In 2035, the crew of the Ares 3 mission to Mars is exploring Acidalia Planitia.
This is The Martian.
Yes. So, I think the idea has promise.
Right, it's probably too easy.
I think it's pretty easy to do. Unless we really spend some time trying to think of difficult movies.
Right. So,
or, not difficult.
What
obviously.
What if it was something similar, but instead of just reading this plot summary, it was more like you give them, like, okay, this movie came out in this year. This movie has these actors. This movie, you slowly narrow it down until you eventually are giving clues like, this movie, is about kidnapping the president.
So it's kind of the opposite of the 10 questions with starter facts.
Right.
Is instead of asking questions to narrow it down, you're giving answers to narrow it down.
Right.
And I don't know, do you feel like those two things are too similar to have both of them? Because I like both ideas, but
I think this, we would specifically, at least in my mind, we would specifically restrict this to be movies, and we would have a pretty much a set order of what facts you would read. So, like, you would start out by saying the genre, and then you would say what year it came out, and like, obviously the more specific you got, you would have to kind of tailor it to the movie, but, like, the top level stuff is every movie has the same kinds of things, you know, actors, directors, budgets, years, genres, so
yeah,
you could have kind of it really would be, in my opinion, fairly different from the other thing.
Okay. No, yeah. With you putting it that way, I'm on board with that. That sounds good to me. So kind of like a guess the movie, and then you've got a list here of like, yeah, genre,
year,
actors.
I
think other things that would be, I mean, like, if I know the genre, the year, and the actors, I feel like the next thing I want to know is something about the plot.
Right.
Because either those things are going to have helped me a little bit, or those things are going to have done absolutely nothing for me. And...
Right, so starting with number 4, it's got to be a generic fact about the movie. It doesn't necessarily, I think, have to be about the plot, but, like, for example, for The Martian, clue number 4 might be, like, it takes place in the future, or the near future if that's too general. Or,
sure.
Or for National Treasure, clue number 4 might be, like, this movie involves riddles and puzzles as a central theme, or something that's like a generic. Yeah, you're writing it. Go ahead. Generic fact about the movie that's, you know, kind of at the clue giver's discretion, really.
So
or
like
maybe actually,
fact.
No. Number 4 should be setting. So it should be location, time. Location and time. And
so for the Martian, I think it would be fair to say, like, it doesn't take place on Earth, and it takes place in the near future. Is that what you're going for?
I would say for any of these, you can tailor it to be, you know, like for The Martian, you really don't want to say it takes place on Mars, right? Because that really narrows it down.
Yeah.
So you can even, a lot of this is up to the person's discretion. Like for The Martian, I might consider just not saying the setting clue is number 4, moving it to later. But you could, if you want to just say a vague setting clue, like it takes place in the near future, and it does not take place on Earth. I guess that still really gives it away. But so
I don't know. It's kind of tough. And
right, but it's up to the person's discretion. But for most, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if we're allowing discretion and you just omit those facts, that's kind of a clue in itself, right?
It is a clue, but at least it's not like giving it away.
It's not a specific one, yeah.
Right, and I feel like for most movies, the setting is not going to give it away. Like, this movie takes place in Boston. Okay, that doesn't really tell me anything.
This movie takes place in America in the 2000s.
Right, it's not going to really tell me anything. So,
right.
So setting and now general fact.
General movie fact. Followed by maybe general plot point.
General plot point and
character name. I don't know, how quickly do we want to start, like, really...
Right. I feel like as soon as you give main character name, you're pretty much at a point where you expect the person to get it. So
right.
Is that what we want to do just now?
Maybe once you reach general plot point, you just continue giving general plot points until...
Right, and then so general plot points at and then main character's name. specific plot point.
Name
And
of
then-
movie.
That's it. You dumbass. I can't
That's
even
you,
type that's
dumbass.
it. That's it,
All
you
right,
dumbass.
That's it. There you go.
Um,
Okay. I want to suggest one final twist
uh-huh.
that we might just shoot down immediately because it's
Yep.
kind of bad. I don't even know if I like it all that much.
Uh-huh.
But what if literally anything is fair game, but the other person can be searching the details as they get them?
Okay, here's what we should do. We should try it. So let's try this way without the searching thing. And then we'll try it
Yeah.
with the searching thing and just see what we like. So let me look up a movie.
The other question I have before we start this is, do I get like one guess per fact, or can I just be like
I
streaming
think you can
guesses?
you can guess as much as you want,
Okay.
I think. It's
Sure.
just how many facts do I give before you get it?
Okay. Do I need to like request the next fact in that case?
Yeah, that's fine. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
All right, so let's see if it lists the genre of this movie here. Wow, it doesn't list the genre.
I mean, you can get close, right?
Yeah.
I don't think a very specific technical genre will mean much to me anyway.
This is a musical.
Interesting.
Do you want to guess?
Is it Hamilton?
No.
Okay. What's the year?
Came out in 2017.
What musicals came out in 2017? I honestly don't know that much about musicals. Is it La La Land?
No.
Okay, I think that's the only other musical I know.
This movie starred
What's-
Emma Watson and Dan Stevens.
Ooh, Beauty and the Beast?
Ding, ding, ding.
Nice.
All right.
Okay, so
that was-
those starter facts were honestly more helpful than I was worried that those were just rarely going to ever give me an information.
Right. Well, the thing is, I picked a musical, which there aren't that many of, so
True.
the
That's true.
genre did help. All right. Why don't you come up with a movie and give me this way we just did?
All right. Let's see. What do we got here? All right, I would say this is a science fiction movie.
Okay. Is it 2001: A Space Odyssey?
It is not.
Is it Interstellar?
No.
All right. I'm not going to guess every sci-fi movie I know. Give me the next clue.
It came out in 2008.
2008. Ooh. What came out then? All right. Give me the actors.
All right, I'm going to give you several actors
Uh-huh.
because I don't recognize many of these names, so I don't think this is going to be super helpful, but we've got Ben Burt, Alyssa Knight,
Okay.
Jeff Garlin,
Yeah.
Fred Willard, John Ratzenberger, Kathy Najimy, probably pronounced that wrong, and Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, Sigourney Weaver. Science fiction 2008.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Give me the next thing. What's the next thing? Setting.
Setting is about 60-20. Wow, that does not add up to 100. 60-40 space and Earth.
60 Earth, 40 space, or 60 space, 40 Earth?
60 space, 40 Earth. That might actually be kind of bad. Maybe it's more like 70-30.
Is it Apollo 13?
Nope.
No. It's science fiction, but it does take place at least partially on Earth.
Yep.
Huh. Are you sure I've seen this movie?
You've almost certainly heard of it.
Okay. All right, give me the next clue.
All right, general movie fact: it is an animated movie.
animated movie takes place in space. That's probably why I've never heard of any of the people. And it came out in 2008. Okay, I feel like I must must have narrowed in on it on this point. Is it WALL-E?
Yes, it is.
Nice. All right, nice. That was pretty good. All right, so now let's try it the other way.
All right, so anything is fair game, but I'm going to be just madly searching things. Well,
so I
don't know if this is.
I can pick any movie in existence or any. What was the? Is that the idea?
Yeah, you just pick whatever you want. I think we should narrow down the number of guesses you can make at this stage too, since I could otherwise just be reading search results, right? So.
So, you want to say one, or what do you want to say?
One guess per fact, I think, is maybe best. Or maybe 2 guesses per fact, just in case you can, it seems like a shame to have to get an entire fact when you've narrowed it down to 2. So.
Right. So what did you say? I was actually not paying attention. I was looking up a movie.
Let's give 2 guesses per fact.
Okay. Number 1, it's a horror movie.
All right. I'm not going to search anything because I know what horror movies are. Is it It?
No.
Okay. What's the next fact?
Next fact is, let's see, year. Came out in 1980.
1980 horror movies. This might be way too easy.
It's going to be way too easy.
Is it The Shining?
Yep.
Okay, that was too easy. I think we should...
I probably picked one that was too easy. Let's see. The real problem is if I Google an obscure movie, then you're probably just going to be able to Google the exact same thing and find the movie. And if I pick a movie I know, you're just going to be able to Google the exact thing and find it.
Yeah, I think I think search engines are too good at our games.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just do it the other way.
Yep, I think that's fair.
I mean, I think it worked out pretty well. We picked a couple of interesting, like, distinct type of things.
Right.
And got kind of interesting results, and we really didn't have to get all that specific either time, so.
Right. All right. Well, we are over an hour, so we're obviously not going to get to the other thing that we were planning on doing today, but...
Excellent. More content for later.
Yeah. Since we spent most of our time... Since we still can talk about this, I'm wondering if we can just spend a few minutes brainstorming something better than who has the highest card. Or rock, paper, scissors.
I actually had another idea that I wanted to mention just in general, which is 2 truths and a lie. How do you feel about that?
It's okay. I feel like, A, we know a lot about each other, so it would be difficult to do in the beginning, and B, right. After a few times of doing it, it would be nearly impossible. we
just run out of stuff. All right, that's fair. Yeah, we've got a limited amount of material.
So, wonder if we could do something similar, though, like it wasn't about us. Like, one person picks... Like, whoever's turn it is picks a piece of entertainment, movie, book, song, whatever. The other person looks at the Wikipedia page and then comes up with 2 truths and a lie about the thing.
I like that. So you've got a very narrow, like, space to work with, and then you've got to, I mean, obviously try and come up with a very... Do you want to try that one really quick as well?
Sure. Do you want to give me a thing?
Yeah. Let's go with the TV show Parks and Recreation.
All right. That's a good choice since I probably know a fair amount about it.
And there's a decent amount of material I think that you can draw from too. So.
All right. So. This is going to take a minute for me to think about.
Okay.
So do you want to just talk about the show for a bit?
I mean, I don't really know what to talk about. Maybe what I'll do instead is comment that this is kind of a problem that I think we'll face when we play this. So maybe we should come up with some way to make something else to fill this space. So like maybe this space could be filled with either some sort of like other game element, like maybe this is the space in which we design each round to have like some person is doing some sort of determination of what the points are going to be or whatever, while the other person whose turn it is tasked with coming up with the game details. And obviously some Wikipedia hunt is not going to take a whole lot of effort, and 10 questions is going to be a collaboration. But something like this, something like I don't know, maybe even Hangman, or guess the movie if you're trying to come up with it's I feel like after a while at least it's going to be a little bit difficult to come up with an interesting choice of movie on the spot, so we probably should have some sort of thing designed into I don't know, maybe be making the choices for us. I don't like that idea a whole lot, because then you don't get the freedom to choose an interesting movie. You don't get to kind of like strategically think about and pick a movie that the other person definitely knows but will take some facts to get right. Whereas if you pick something, kind of like The Martian, I feel like is the perfect example of a bad movie to pick, because there's so many distinct facts about it that other movies don't really share.
Okay.
That took quite a while.
Right, so
struggled to ramble for that long.
Yeah, I mostly wasn't listening, but I've got two truths and a lie.
All right,
here we go. Number 1 is the show ran for less than 140 episodes. Number 2 is that the writers of the show researched Indiana politics in order to, write the show.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3 is that Newt Gingrich appeared on the show.
Okay. All right. Here's my thoughts about those 3 facts. I am pretty sure that Newt Gingrich appeared on the show. Although that would definitely be one of the things that you could kind of sneak in as like famous politician of that period appeared, because they definitely go to Washington a couple of times.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure that one's true. The other 2 facts, I feel like they're both also true. So, good job coming up with these.
Thank you.
Time well spent. But let's see. The show ran for, did you say more than 140 episodes?
Less than 140
Less
episodes.
than 140 episodes. Well, there were 7 seasons, and I don't know, 20-ish episodes per season seems pretty fair. But maybe I would believe less. But since I'm pretty sure Newt Gingrich was on the show, if I say there were less than 140 seasons, I guess I would be
140 seasons.
140 episodes. I clearly I talked too much while you were researching, and I can no longer stream of consciousness my thoughts here. So okay. Anyway, the thought is Newt Gingrich is on the show. That's a fact. Either there were fewer than 140 episodes, which I feel like isn't particularly true, or the writers didn't research Indiana politics, which for a show about Indiana politics is almost certainly false, right? So I'm going to say that there were fewer. Wait a minute. What are the facts? I forgot the facts already.
The facts are Newt Gingrich appeared on the show.
Okay,
the show
true.
ran for less than 140 episodes, and the writers researched Indiana politics before writing the show.
True. Okay, so I'm saying the 140 episodes thing is false.
And you would in fact be wrong. The number of episodes was 126. Newt Gingrich did appear on the show, and the writers researched California politics in order to write the series.
I guess they were more concerned with like politics in general rather than policy position then, because California not really a great stand-in for Indiana in terms of policy. Okay, that was
tough.
Fun to do, a little bit difficult to come up with.
Do you want to Yeah, so maybe this isn't a great idea.
Yeah.
Do you think it was better or worse than who has the highest card?
In terms of a game, it's definitely better, but in terms of like setup and effort, who has the highest card is pretty much the best one on the list right now.
Yeah, we do kind of want this to be bang bang, so that's probably better. You're right.
Okay. Here's an amendment, which is slightly less fun, but I think keeps the spirit of it. What if you come up with a single fact that is plausible, and the other person guesses whether it's true or false?
Yeah, that's good. That's much better.
So let's you give me something. I'll look it up real quick and try and keep it under about 30 seconds to generate my thing. And
the book, The Martian, not the movie, the book.
Okay. The Martian, weird novel. All right.
Now you can't use the author. You told me who the last name of the author was.
All right, I'm going to scroll to a random point here.
I'm excited about... Honestly, The Martian as a book was... The Martian as a movie was honestly, like, one of the best movie adaptations of a book that I've read. And now that may be because I actually saw the movie before reading the book.
Yeah.
But I think that the movie basically changes... Like, there's only one minor gripe that I had with what they changed / removed for the movie. And it was really minor. It was the space pirate bit. Because his point is that NASA can't give him permission to board the aircraft until he gets there, which is true in the book because he accidentally shorts out his communication satellite, so he's no longer able to communicate with NASA. But in the movie, he doesn't. He's always able to communicate with NASA throughout his entire journey once he makes contact with them. So the space pirate joke doesn't actually make sense in the movie. I actually in the book really liked the whole line where he could no longer talk to NASA, which was something I thought was missing in the movie. I think your 30 seconds are up here. What do you got?
I was listening too much to you, which I realized at the end, and so here we go. The captain, maybe you know this. The captain of the crew is named Henderson.
Oh, that's false.
Okay. Yes, it is false.
Although the Henderson is the guy, maybe it's not. Is it the guy who's at NASA who's in charge of the crew? Or is that
no? Henderson is just a different astronaut.
What's the name of the guy who was played by Sean Bean in the movie, who's in charge of the crew from NASA? He's like the crew. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Mitch. No, sorry. Yeah, Henderson. Okay, sorry. I was reading the name from a different. Henderson is that guy.
Henderson is his name. Okay.
Yes.
The captain. Let's see if I can come up with the captain's name. It was played by. I think it was Jessica Chastain on the movie, and I don't remember her name though. What was her name?
Lewis.
I don't think I would have pulled that out, but I did get the question right. So, and I thought that was a good game, much faster.
Yeah. Reasonable fact. And I think if I'm deliberately not listening to you, I think you can probably whip up about 30 seconds of fun fact about the thing you just suggested.
Yeah, especially since you're going to be saying something that you actually know something about.
Right.
let me make one final proposal about this, which is that I think who has the highest card is more interesting than rock, paper, scissors. So why don't we make number 3 this game we just said, and then number 6 be, if there's no guest, it'll be who has the highest card.
All right.
Sound good to you?
I'm in favor of that. I like that plan.
All right.
So let's call this one. I saw you were editing and I switched. So this is either guest choice or who has the highest card. And in fact, I'm going to do a whole bunch of editing right now to make Jack guest choice.
Ah, smart.
Because I want it to be. That feels better to me. No!
What did you do?
I'm a failure. Instead of Control V over guest choice, I did Control C over guest choice. So now my clipboard is just guest choice, and all of that crap I copied before is gone.
Just Control Z.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we didn't get to our main topic of today. I guess we'll do it next week. Keep sending in your favorite podcast moments of the past year, if you have any, or anything else that you wanted to talk to us about. If you have any other mini game ideas, let us know.
Yeah, we really only got one mini game idea, which was quick memory. No, tongue twisters was the fan suggestion.
Yep.
So I think we can go ahead and just eliminate roll a dice until you get a 4 from this. Oh no.
We are not good at co-editing a document.
We say it and then we both immediately go and do it, and so
right.
Should probably also.
All right, I think that should do it for this episode. We're at hour 21, and this was all like over an hour of us just talking about this game. So,
I mean,
it was interesting.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I think the game is interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe talking about the game is more interesting than the game. I don't know.
And I think we made it more interesting for the future. So.
Yes.
All right. And we'll discuss offline the point values. All right, that's it, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you indeed sat through this entire thing, I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
And this has been our podcast, Joel.